How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
You guys keep up the good work, man. Podcasts are the way of the future.
Welcome in. Thank you for downloading the latest edition of the DocNJock podcast. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. This podcast is shaping up to be a monster. We got a lot to get to. Red Wings, Pistons, Michigan State. I look forward to it. I love when we get a chance to record and talk about Detroit sports. I sit here and I go, man, the week that we had last week was unbelievable. Me making national news, you doing the things you do online. I see your presence online growing. I love the fact you're getting in the mix online and doing your thing, and it's all good, baby. And I can't wait to talk to you about everything going on. So much to get to this week.
Yeah, it was a huge week. If you're a Detroit sports fan, whether you realized it or not, there is a ton going on. Your Detroit Pistons. Let's just start right there. Let's start with your Detroit Pistons. This is a team that earlier in the year, I think we both were pining for them to tank. Tank, whatever you got to do, get the best draft pick you can get, because neither one of us believed you were going to win anything. You fast forward, coming down the stretch here, this team has struggled mightily. Going from essentially a 6 seed, now clinging to life to try to get into the playoffs. They have to basically win to get in. And after the performance against Memphis, which, by the way, that was a Memphis team that was basically brought up from the D-League. Like, all the starters, we're just going to sit them. Just going to sit all of them. Next thing you know, Memphis jumps out to a 20-point lead. Detroit's got to claw its way back in and barely gets a W. It's embarrassing.
Whenever we look at the Pistons and we had a chance to evaluate factually what we thought about the Blake Griffin trade and how we felt like, you know what, there's some skepticism because of the fact that this guy's injury prone. Mm-hmm. And last year he comes in and he gets injured late and it affects the Pistons season. And then, what stinks is in life when you're right, okay, and then people still come at you and call you a hater. You're so negative. Why don't you believe? Look, Blake Griffin's just balling out. It's the best season he's ever had. Because the best season he ever had, and the Pistons, if they do actually, in fact, defeat the Knicks, are still only going to end up 41 wins, 41 losses. Okay, so...
let that sink in.
Exactly.
You're a 500 team, and your best player had his best season in his career.
So don't go out there and call people haters that are saying, look, that are being skeptical, that are being real with you and saying, I think that Blake Griffin, when it comes down to it, is not going to be around, not going to be healthy. The odds are that in crunch time, when you need Blake Griffin, something's going to be wrong. And now, this year, he got, unfortunately, he's got a knee problem. And in the game versus Memphis, he had to sit. And everyone's going to be really paying attention to the contest versus the Knicks to see how he's utilized. But unfortunately, you realize, how are you going to build around this guy? That's what everybody was concerned about. That's what we were concerned about. And so when you go out there and you call out people for being haters, how are you going to call out somebody for being haters? It's not like I just threw it out, picked it out from my ass and said, I'm going to go hate on Blake Griffin. It's because year in, year out, when it was crunch time, he had issues. And when he got to the postseason, then there were times when he did not come to deliver. The Clippers decided to move on from Blake Griffin. When an organization does that, there's something behind it. You just can't go, it's our luck.
And look at the Clippers. They're the best team in L.A. The best team in L.A. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. I think with Blake, physically, his body can't stand up to an 82-game regular season. He had his best season. There was a ton of weight lumped on him. He was this team for large stretches of the season. And now, as you come to crunch time, his knee's given out. He's got this knee tendonitis, he's got this knee problem, whatever it is, and he can't get on the floor. He's your best player. He's the best guy on this team, and they've got to rest him regularly throughout the season just to kind of nurse his body to the end. Like this isn't the San Antonio Spurs with Greg Popovich resting Tim Duncan. You know, like, oh, okay, cool. We're gonna give Tim a day off. We're gonna give Tony Parker a day off. We're gonna give Manu a day off too. No, this isn't that team. I mean, that team had some depth to it. If Blake's not firing, what's Andre gonna give you? What's Reggie gonna give you? They're not good enough. Like Blake is, or Andre is not a superstar. He's not the guy that was drafted, and he's not what he was supposed to be. He's just a guy. He's just there. Yeah, he's a rebounding machine. Cool. He's tall, he's big, and he stands near the basket. Honestly, I could be a rebounding machine too if I had all those attributes. It doesn't take a whole lot of basketball acumen to go and rebound. And I know maybe I'm simplifying it here, but think about it, guys. Think about it.
It's not hate, it's fact. And it's unfortunate that the Pistons are suffering because of it. There's a small chance that when you download this today, that the Pistons might not be in the playoffs. There's a strong chance that if they end up losing to the Knicks and Charlotte wins at home versus Orlando, they're out.
And let me put it to you like this. What good does it do you to be the 8th seed so you can go get jail sex by Milwaukee? This is a team you haven't been able to beat all year. What's the point? So Tom Gores can maybe get 2 gates? Maybe? Are you serious? This is what we're talking about?
And there's an above average chance that the fans that actually show up to LCA are going to boo you off the court.
Yeah.
Because they're not happy. And they're not, by and large, buying into this process that, you know what, all the effort, everything that you gave with Blake Griffin, Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond having a rebound year, only 41 wins. That's unbelievable, potentially.
It's not good enough.
That might be their ceiling with this group together. And that's what stinks about being a Pistons fan is that everybody knows the facts, everybody knows the truth. Yet, and I was thinking about this too. I was thinking about the Pistons and how they're trying to go about this and what really pisses me off about it, okay? And the way I'll describe it is this. It's like they got a cup of urine, and everybody's like, dude, that's piss. That tastes nasty. And the Pistons are like, no, this is good. Okay? This is high quality
your analogies
urine. This is high quality urine.
Crazy.
Okay? And then people are like, no, they're still looking like, dude, that's not going to taste good. That's urine. Okay? Now, what the Pistons have done, they've doubled down. They've taken the cup of urine, drank it, and smiled, and everybody said, look, this shit's awesome. And we're like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And that's the best way to describe it is they're trying to sell us bullshit and trying to tell us it's delicious and saying this is amazing. It's like, dude, this is urine, dude. What are you doing? Why are you drinking that? No, change it up. Go get a soda. Get some Gatorade. And they're like, no. And they're doubling down on it. And they're actually trying to sell it back to you.
All right, first things first. You called it soda. It's not soda. It's pop. There you go. Thank you. Absolutely. Pop all day long.
That's what they're doing.
Embrace your roots, baby. Embrace your roots.
That's what they're doing. They're trying to sell us shit, and then they're doubling down. And actually, whenever there's a little bit of success, everyone's like, see, why is everybody critiquing the Pistons?
Yeah.
Because we're not changing the question. Nobody believes the Pistons can win. Okay, great. They can win a playoff round. That's what you're supposed to be doing every year. Mm-hmm. Nobody believes that you're on the proper track. And what really frustrated me is I understand that it probably gets to the players and it probably gets to the coach to hear that everybody's against you, to have the fans just booing you, to have key games and half the stadium's empty. When you have big games versus Toronto, half of the fans are not even your fans. But for Dwane Casey to address the media and to verbalize, hey guys, don't break your ankles getting back on the bandwagon, I just found that comment publicly to be laughable because nobody's on your bandwagon. Yeah, you got fans. People do, like us, we watch the Pistons, we care about them. But nobody believes you're going to win. Nobody believes that your roster is good enough to do anything outside of the 12 guys that are in that locker room, and maybe even, probably Dwane Casey, if we gave him some whiskey, would tell us, yeah, I want to get rid of all these guys, but I can't. But he's done a good job. I'll give him credit. But you can't say those things. You have to also understand who you're talking to. Does it not resonate that the LCA is empty? Does it not resonate that the station that you're broadcast out of just hammers you nonstop, and that there are times when, people are looking at what you're bringing to the table and they're not happy with it? But to say that, I thought Dwane Casey, it just came across as very tone deaf.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And this is the thing. If you want fans to cheer and you want fans to be on your bandwagon, give them something to cheer about.
Yeah.
Like, you do realize you just played a B, maybe a C squad with Memphis, and they took you to your limit. Like, honestly, you don't have any guard play on this team. You have zero guard play. Reggie Jackson is supposed to be your starting point guard. He was benched for Ish Smith. Ish Smith on a good team is maybe a backup who gives you 4 minutes a quarter at the most. Do you know what I'm saying? On this team, we make him out to be a superstar, and we've got to watch Johnny Kane interview him after the end of the game and talk about how great he did. This team is devoid of talent. And this was the big thing with trading for Blake. Look, Blake proved me wrong, all right? Blake came here, and he's really turned everything around. He's embraced Detroit. That's awesome. It's awesome. But you're getting paid a fortune. You can't stay healthy for 82 games. Andre Drummond is essentially a bum. I know, for real. When he wants to play, he could be one of the best players on the court. But he's so uneven. He's so inconsistent. He's so up and down.
The problem is when you get in foul trouble and you have a game and you give up and you produce a line of like less than 10 points, it's unacceptable.
Yeah. He's supposed to be a cornerstone of this team. He's supposed to be your number 2. And on a good team, he's a distant number 3. Reggie Jackson is supposed to be your point guard. He got benched the other night for Ish Smith, for a guy who wouldn't even back up on a starting on a playoff team. This team is put together so disjointedly, and Tom Gores, his whole decree was make the playoffs. But why? Why? What good is it going to do you in the long run? I think if you had Dwane Casey in studio with us and we held a gun to his head and we said, is it the best thing for you guys to make the playoffs? I bet you he'd look us dead in the face and say, no, we should have been tanking because we don't have the cap space. We don't have the money to go get impactful players, but we could have drafted a young, impactful guy. We could have went out and we could have got a point guard because chances are you weren't going to get Zion, right? And you don't necessarily need Zion because you got freaking Andre Drummond. And apparently he's butt boys with Tom Gores and he's not going anywhere. So what were you going to do with another center? Doesn't make any sense to me. So you go out there and you get the best available point guard.
So is it the best thing for the Pistons to actually not even qualify for the playoffs? Or do you say, you know what?
Not at this point. Like honestly, what good would it do you? Look at where you're going to end up drafting. You know, you're going to be drafting somewhere in the middle again. You needed to lose early. You needed to tank. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you can't tank. You can't tell professional athletes tank. I've said that on this podcast. But for the organization, it's the best thing. It was the best thing. It was the best course of action. Cool. So you're going to win. You're going to win against New York, right? Big deal. Now you're in the 8th seed. Giannis is going to eat you alive. He's going to feast every single day. This is arguably the MVP of the freaking league who's going to come in and kill you. Kill you. Do you know why? Because he's cold-blooded. You watch anything on Giannis. I just got an Instagram. I'm still figuring it out. I follow a lot of porn stars and a lot of chicks who work out. It's pretty great. I'm going to be honest with you guys. It's pretty awesome. But you know what else I follow? I follow Bleacher. I follow Score. I follow Giannis. He's a killer. The dude is a maniac. He wakes up thinking basketball, goes to sleep thinking basketball. He eats his oatmeal in the morning, and you know what's in it? Basketball. Everything he does is basketball. He's not like Andre Drummond, where it's just, yeah, I play basketball. No. This dude, he is motivated. He wants to win. He doesn't want to leave Milwaukee. He wants to stay in Milwaukee. Who the hell wants to stay in Milwaukee? Unless you're drinking beer, what are you going to Milwaukee for? Doesn't make any damn sense. Nobody wants to live in Milwaukee. But you know what? Giannis does. Giannis wants to win a title. He wants to bring it back to Milwaukee. That's what he wants to do. This dude is crazy. Nobody wants to live in Milwaukee. That's how I know he's freaking crazy. But all he wants to do is win, and he wants to kill you when he beats you. It's nuts. The guy he is everything that you ever wanted in a player. And you know what? You had a chance at him, and you screwed that up.
See, I would have liked to have seen the Pistons play the Bucks with a healthy Blake Griffin. But now you're going to have a hobbled Blake Griffin, and what are you going to do? Are you going to risk him being injured further because you paid him all this money in the future? You don't even have your best weapon, so it's going to be embarrassing. I mean, what would be worse, not making the playoffs or getting to the postseason and then not having Blake Griffin? I think the optics of that are so terrible that the Pistons can't recover from it because you have invested in Blake Griffin. You need him now. Okay, fine. You know what? You get into the postseason, but if you have everybody firing on all cylinders, they're all healthy, maybe you have a chance to win a couple games. Maybe you can put on some performances that the crowd at LCA can be happy with. But no, if you don't have Blake Griffin, or if you go out there and trying to put out a 60% Blake Griffin, it's going to be laughable. I don't want to see a less than stellar Blake Griffin because of what he's done. So it's just apropos for the Pistons to have to go down this road. And it's so unfortunate. It's so frustrating. But for me, I'd say I kind of hope that they just lose to the Knicks, don't make the postseason, because I think that will signal. It would have to signal to upper management, blow this thing up. Reggie, Andre, Blake, Galloway, everybody's on the table. Ish, blow this up. That's what everybody's waiting for, is someone to push the dynamite down and say, okay, push the wick, light it up, and blow this up. And I think that's probably the only way it'll happen, is if they epically flame out and don't make the postseason.
If the reports of having multiple trade offers for Andre Drummond a few years ago are absolutely true, and Tom Gores vetoed them, that tells you everything you need to know about this team. He's more concerned with coming to LCA, sitting first row, partying, throwing T-shirts, and being butt boys with the players.
His Instagram is not bad. You follow him.
You can't have that.
He's got comedians. He does stuff after games where he hangs out and stuff. It's a good follow. He'll go live and broadcast from his crib and
does
doing some fun
anybody roast him in the comments?
Oh yeah, all the time.
You can't do that. Like, I love Mark Cuban. I think Mark Cuban's a great owner. I would love for Mark Cuban to own this team, because Mark Cuban is just crazy enough to stab a referee if it means his team's going to win. Mark Cuban gets it. He understands it. Tom Gores, it's just his plaything. And I get it. You're a billionaire. I totally understand. But you know what? Sports are important to guys like us. Sports are important to you. Sports are important to just the average Joe. Sports don't seem to be important to Tom Gores. It just doesn't seem to connect with him.
I think it's important. I just don't think he realizes what it's going to take. And the mantra of getting to the postseason is one that is not going to play well here in town. The mantra should be, we want to win it all. That should be the mantra. We are building to win it all, period. But to get to the playoffs so that what? They say, realistically, their spin is that, well, if we get to the postseason, we got a chance. You have no chance, especially now that you're going to hobble in. Zero chance, and it's going to be embarrassing if they get swept out. That's the way it's going to be.
You haven't been able to take care of Milwaukee all season, right? That's who you're going to face. You haven't been able to take care of them all season. They're the best team in the NBA right now, right? They have home court advantage throughout the entire playoffs. You, at your healthiest, weren't able to get a victory, and most of those games were blowouts. So now you want to factor in your best player, Blake Griffin, being slowed. We'll say slowed. We'll just be polite. Being slowed with a knee injury and knee discomfort. How is this going to work? How does this translate? Everything gets ramped up in the playoffs. Everything. So now you've got Giannis, who's already a killer. He's coming out there with a flamethrower because he wants to incinerate you. He doesn't just want to kill you and leave you dead. No. He wants to burn you to ash. So that way nobody knows you're there. That's right, Adam. This is bad. This is screwed up from the top down. And this all sits on Tom Gores. All of it. All of it. This team is so frustrating. Watching them play is just mind-numbing. Absolutely mind-numbing. I watched the game against, it was on Friday night. I watched the game against OKC. And I was talking with Ryan because we were working at the radio station. And I was like, I don't even know what happened. He made some mention. He's like, oh, the Pistons are on. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, I'm going to put that on real quick. So I flipped it on to one of the TVs. I was like, who are they playing today? I don't even know who they were playing. He was like, OKC. I was like, oh, dude, they're going to get trucked. Next thing you know, they jump out to a big lead, and I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong here. Nope. Guess who was spot on? They got steamrolled. The team is garbage. And Blake was out there having a game of his career. Blake was killing it. He had like 20-some points in the first quarter. He finished, I think, with 44 or 45. It was absolutely nuts. And this team still couldn't get a W. They're trash.
Well, let's look at their roommates as well.
Trash.
At LCA, the Detroit Red Wings.
Nice
it was
transition.
disappointing.
Look at you. 5 years of podcasting. Look at you.
They're roommates, baby. We thought.
Got your pro pants on today.
You had Putty trying to tell me, you should watch the NHL Draft Lottery instead of wrestling. It's important.
It's important.
Dude, Mike, I knew what was going to happen. I was hopeful. I was trying to put out some good karma earlier in the day, going to tankathon.com, trying to do the simulation. I got third. I did one. That's it. One.
Hold up real quick. So, why are you like? Because I know you watched it. I know you just talk shit. So I know you watched it because I watched it too. Were you not bored by the entire presentation?
I was actually perfect in that I kind of made an assumption. I said, okay, it starts at 8, but they're not going to just start picking at 8. I said they're going to bullshit maybe 8:15, 8:20.
That's so I tuned in. Too.
So I watched wrestling for the first half hour, and then I said, okay, and I started to go to the hashtags on Twitter, and nobody was starting to talk. They were still going on. So at 8:30, I tuned in specifically, and then that's when the person that did the drawing kind of came up with the boards, and they started it. So I got it right at 8:30, and I was actually
8:07. I was watching.
Yeah,
so I was following.
Waits a half hour,
and it was bananas, dude. I was like, what are we doing? Like, can you tell me where the Wings are picking, please?
Exactly.
Can you tell me?
And
it's
for
like
the
this
NHL,
whole pomp and circumstance.
Show us the ping pong balls. Why not lottery style? Have everybody with what you call it. I think it should just be one and done. Everybody, one ball.
You know why, right?
Oh,
this is rigged, bro.
One ball.
You mean to tell me, right? You mean to tell me Chicago. Chicago's drafting 12th. How do you move up to 3rd? How?
Exactly.
Like, what kind of backdoor deal did you make with the league?
It should be, every team that's in the lottery gets one ping pong ball. It should be lottery style clear. You suck up the ball, and the guy puts it out. That'd be great.
Yeah.
How easy is that? You suck up the ball. Okay, here's your after 15th. Boom.
Do you remember back in the day?
One chance.
Remember back in the day? I think it was like Road to Richie's or something like that, or Road to Riches. It was on like Friday nights or Saturday nights. It was like local Detroit television where they did like this whole lottery thing, right? It was a game show where you could win money. Anyways, they would always cut in the middle of it for Aggie Usagli.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And she would like pull the ping pong.
That's
do
how it should
something
be.
like that.
That's how it should
have
be.
Aggie You Ugly come out and do that. Come on.
All drafts should be that way. Every team that's in the lottery gets one ball, and that's it. So everybody has the same odds and things like that. So, well, for those that don't know, New Jersey won the lottery. They get Jack Hughes. And the Pistons, did they move up? No. For, the third consecutive year, they actually draft worse.
They fell two spots.
They don't even stay where they're supposed to. The odds are that the Wings had the 4th best chance of getting Jack Hughes, and they went down. And what do you make of the Detroit Red Wings drafting 6th after the NHL Draft lottery presentation?
I'm so upset because they
such a bummer when it was 6th.
They go on and they win 7 out of their last 10 games. And what did it do for you? Did nothing for you. Like honestly, did nothing. You didn't have to win any of those games because all it did was hurt you. Could you imagine adding Jack Hughes to this team? This team looked really good down the stretch, and there's a lot to be hopeful for next year. And I think we both disagree on that. And we're going to talk about that here in a minute because they were so far out of playoff contention. But they look good down the stretch. It gave you something to hope for next year. But if you could add a guy like Jack Hughes to that lineup,
cause you know what's next?
You could center your second line, and it's just crazy.
Cause what's next is, everybody knows how bad Detroit sports are. What actually is next that's going to happen is next season, the Detroit Red Wings will have 75 points again. They'll be actually the odds-on favorite to win it, and they'll draft 8th. They'll actually drop more spots because we're all assuming that, hey, if you give yourself the odds-on best chance that it's going to happen for you. Well, something's going on in Detroit sports with their luck in drafting in the draft lottery. They never go from 8th to 1st. They're always going from 4th to 7th, 3rd to 9th, 2nd to 6th. Dude, it's ridiculous at this point. It's bullshit. And at this point in time, I see that's the ammo that people that talk about tanking say is that there's no guarantee that, hey, if you're the odds-on favorite, you get the ball. I mean, look, New Jersey got the number 1 pick when they were nowhere near the odds-on favorite of winning it all. So Colorado got screwed. Chicago moved up the best. So you look at it and you say, you know what? For those that say anti-tanking, there's no guarantee you get the number 1 selection. There is no equivalent.
I understand that, but you got to give yourself the best shot. You have to give yourself the best opportunity. I totally understand.
I have no faith that, luck will bestow Detroit
teams. How pissed off did Joe Sakic look?
Oh, man.
Like, he looked furious. Because what a trade for them.
Dude, he aged poorly. He looks horrible.
Dude, he lost like a finger in a snowblower. So, look, how upset would you be if you're a Colorado Avalanche fan? Great trade, right? You traded Matt Duchene, who wasn't really helping your team. It seemed like when Matt Duchene was on that team, he really clogged things up and bogged things down. You trade him to Ottawa. Ottawa keeps him. You then get Ottawa's first-round pick because Ottawa sucks so damn bad, right? And they decided to keep their 4th overall pick last year. And then you go to the draft, and what are you doing? You're drafting, I think they're drafting 4th again? Like, they were guaranteed to draft no worse than 4th, and you're drafting 4th. How upset would you be if you were Colorado? I'd be pissed. But you have to give yourself the best shot, the best chance available. I think we've already discussed some collusion that probably happened with Chicago being elevated from 12 to 3. You mean to tell me if the Red Wings are the worst team, second worst team, they're going to be drafting 6th? No. I guarantee you they'll be drafting in the top 4.
Yeah.
Just because it's a Original Six franchise. It's a team that has meant so much to the NHL. There are things that get done, guys, and don't be naive to think that I'm just speaking out of my ass here. There are things that get done to help protect other teams. There's a reason why New Jersey got the first overall pick. There's a reason. They need a good team on that coast, especially in the New York area, right, where you've got multiple teams. You got the Islanders who are you got the Rangers who and then you got the Devils. You got Buffalo as well. Buffalo can't get out of their own way.
Because my goal wasn't to win the draft lottery. I knew once they had the winning streak, for me, it was not going to be about Jack Hughes anymore. I was just like, you know what? Let some luck bestow on the Red Wings. Let's just move up to second and get Kakko. I mean, that guy seems like he's the odds-on favorite to be the number 2 draft pick. He seems like he's got some upside that he would have potential to contribute. But here's the thing. Here's the double-edged sword and the thing that makes it really frustrating to be a fan. Ken Holland kind of poo-poos everything when he comes out and talks and says, look, even though you might get a 17-year-old Jack Hughes, he might not come contribute. He might not be that guy. You know, and so he dampers everything by the way he talks in that when was the last time that the Red Wings got a guy and plucked him into the lineup at 17, 18, other than Steve Yzerman, and he came in, gave it 50 goals, and lit the league on fire and was the guy. That's what
it was the dude.
Yeah, let's play this clip from Ken Holland, and you can get a sense of his insights into what he thinks about the draft, and I think that adds to everyone's frustration. Let's have a listen.
I don't want people to get excited to think if we get the first pick or the second pick that they're going to come in and they're going to... These players are going to change their franchises. I don't know if they're going to change it in 1920. They might change it in 21, 22. You know, my job, I guess I feel part of my job is to protect these players until they're ready to fly.
They're never ready to fly with the Red Wings. That's the problem. When can they fly? You had 74 points. They don't fly. They don't score. They don't defend. That's the problem. That's what everyone's pissed off about. Look, the Red Wings are in a rebuild, but now when you have a season like this, it really makes it hard for the organization to sell to me that they're going to move in the right direction. I was shocked. You know, I understood it always took like 90 points or so or more. Bro, you needed 98 points to get in the playoffs this year. You know how good that is? 24 points is how far away you were. You're nowhere near that. And Ken Holland said that, too. He's like, we probably wouldn't. We'd get Jack Hughes. He scored 12 goals. Whereas now he's going to go to New Jersey and he's going to be paired up with his line mate and his friend there, and he's going to score 40 goals. Why can't that happen to the Red Wings? That's all we're asking for. You got Ken Holland coming out, and he's like, I don't want to bestow that on any player. I don't want to make them feel like they can come in and contribute and save the franchise. Bro, we need someone to save this franchise.
Somebody. Anybody. Look, and they have done it before, right? They have done it before because they did it with Dylan Larkin. All right, Dylan Larkin didn't have to go through the same hoops as everybody else. For some reason, they anointed him as the chosen one. He got the Steve Yzerman treatment. Came basically right in. Here's a jersey. You're skating with the top line. Let's go. And I think we all thought this was going to happen to Zadina, and it for some reason didn't. They were like, "Oh no, you need to go down and you need to work on defense." Cool. We don't score enough. Defense is important, but we don't score enough. And this team figured out how to score more goals late in the season. When they went on their little win streak, and they looked really good doing it. And that's what I was talking about earlier. You're right. They were 24 points out from making the playoffs, from being the final wild card in the East. You're absolutely right. That's a lot of points. Like it's a ton of games that you have to win that this team didn't do. But you've seen some things. You've seen some growth. You've seen some maturity. I mean, do you remember the last time we had a 30-goal scorer on this Red Wings team? We had 2 this year. You could argue if Mantha was healthy and didn't miss 15 games, he'd have been your third 30-goal scorer. You had 4 guys who scored more than 20 goals this season. And Tyler Bertuzzi took a massive step forward, as well as Dylan Larkin. Play the cut from Vanek about Dylan Larkin.
100%. Again, it's what he has done, from my time 2 years ago to now, not just on the ice, but off the ice. It's impressive. It's, a testament to him, how hard he worked, and for sure I can see him be a good captain, a good leader.
Absolutely. Dylan Larkin is going to be your captain next year. Like, I know I'm not going out on a limb here, but he's going to be your captain next year. He took a monumental step. This was a guy that me and you crucified regularly last season. Took a monumental step forward from where he was at last year. looks like the player we all thought he was going to be and could be. Now, that being said, he's got more development he has to do. He has to take another big step forward next season, but it looks like he's on the right path. That's why Jeff Blashill gets another year, right? That's why he gets another 2 years, because players like Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, Anthony Mantha, Andreas Athanasiou, who's we talk about how defense is important, and the only way you get to play on the Red Wings is if you play defense. His defense has come around. He doesn't stop skating when he's in the defensive zone anymore. These are all things that are important. These are all things that help translate to breakout goals and breakout passes and guys moving up the ice quicker than everybody else. These are all things that contribute. I get it. But you mean to tell me a guy like Jack Hughes couldn't come to this team and make an immediate impact? That just like a guy like Zadina couldn't make an immediate impact? At some point, the Red Wings have to change their mentality. And I think they're doing it slowly because you get to see more young guys play this season. It's just not happening fast enough. You need to change the way you see things. Now you're going to draft 6th again. You got gifted last year when you got Zadina because Montreal made a weird move. And everybody's like, what the hell is Montreal doing? You got gifted Zadina. I don't know if you get gifted a player as good as Zadina is this draft. I don't know if that happens. And whose fault is that? That's your fault. As the Detroit Red Wings, that's your fault because you didn't give yourself the best opportunity to be picking in the top 4. Instead, you're now drafting 6. And you say, okay, big deal. What's 2 spots? 2 spots is monumentally different. The top 3 players in this draft are heads and tails above everybody else. Jack Hughes himself is heads and tails above the other 2 guys in that top 3 class. It's absolutely insane how exponential that gap is between number 1 and number 2 and number 3 and the rest of the field. It's insane. So you hurt yourself.
Now, when the Red Wings had their locker room clean out, they did definitely speak to the media, and they talked about how important the offseason is going to be and how everybody's got to continue to get better. Jeff Blashill brought it up, Holland, and even Dylan Larkin, and we'll play a clip here in just a few seconds. But for me, when you look at it objectively and realistically, okay, let's say you do have an improvement. I think the ceiling for them next year is 90 points. That's their ceiling. I don't think they're going to get that much better because obviously their draft picks aren't going to contribute. They're going to be sent to the minors.
Yep.
And so you're kind of strapped a little bit in terms of free agency. You're not going to go out there, and Jeff Blashill had said, at that presser, he said, look, when you get that impactful guy, in the past you used to be able to just go get him. Now it'd be a miracle to go out and get the best guy because he's going to end up wanting to go to a contender. And so the Red Wings basically are strapped with this team. Okay, so this team is going to perform that much better? I don't think so.
Does Zadina come in and does he help balance out some of that scoring? Because it really felt like you had a top line and maybe a top line and a half at certain points in the season. Does Zadina come in and really give you 2 impactful power lines? And does that maybe help this team?
Then the other way of looking at it is, can you improve your defense enough to not give up as many goals as you gave up this year?
True.
That's the problem. Okay, great. Let's say you scored 2 more goals, over the next, 5 or 10 games. Okay, fine. But you're still giving up. You got to find a way to decrease the amount of goals that are going into the net. And Jimmy Howard, I don't think is going to have, a similar type season. I just see him going on a downslope. And I think you could upgrade at goaltender. You could upgrade at defense. You could upgrade at head coach. So that's where there's not a lot of confidence in me saying that, okay, you're going to have a 16-point difference realistically. No, I see the same thing. High-end, mid-80s, and not making the postseason for the 4th consecutive year. But let's hear from Dylan Larkin on what he views as a very significant offseason for the Detroit Red Wings organization.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge summer for everyone. There's opportunity in our organization for, each guy to get better. And in the summer, you have to take care of yourself. Guys are off in their homes, and I'll be here and taking care of myself, getting ready for an 82 game grind. And
it ain't going to happen. So good luck. Thanks. Dylan Larkin's great. I think he took a step forward. He's a guy that you can pay attention to, somebody that you can spend money and enjoy a game with. But competitively speaking on the ice, I don't see it. Let's hear from Jeff Blashill before we take our first time out.
I think you feel good about it that day. I think you feel good about the fact that day you get excited. It's like, it's like when a player gets drafted, they're excited that day. They're super excited, but it doesn't mean that they're going to have a great career, and it doesn't mean that whoever we pick is going to be a great player. Like, we just don't know. So certainly, I think those top few guys have separated themselves in most people's mind, and it feels
mind.
like, you know, the top two specifically would have a chance to help next year. I mean, that's what I'm most worried about right now is, you know, can somebody come help us next year? It'd be great.
No, they just no. And here's Jeff Blashill again coming out and saying, look, the draft is great. We could draft, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th, but they're not going to. He knows. And how are you going to sell that to the fan? He just basically came out into a microphone and told everybody, look, the odds of us drafting a contributor, not that great. So we got to find some more talented individuals, and we got to find them cheaply, and we got to have them come in and not get hurt and fit into the locker room. It's just, does that really speak to really instilling confidence in what the Red Wings are doing by that kind of message of like, hey, listen, guys, I know y'all love the draft. I know you love these young cats, but really, the odds of them helping is going to be pretty low. So let's just be real here. It's Ken Holland picking, you know, he's not going to really do the good job here. You can't sell that. His message should be,
right.
Whoever we pick has to develop. We have to get 8 picks that are going to go out there and develop in our system. And if we have a good system with scouts, I mean, you could lie to us, but not by saying that.
Yeah.
You say, look, we have a great scouting system where we believe that when we look at and evaluate a player, if we give them 3 to 4 years, ask for some patience. If you give us 3 or 4 years and they come through our system, there's going to be an above average chance, more than 60%, they can come in and play NHL hockey.
Would the fan base allow that? I mean,
If you said that as opposed to...
I think the fan base at this point is so starved. They want wins. They want to compete in the playoffs. They want a Stanley Cup. And at this point, you're talking 3 or 4 years. I don't know if the average fan is willing to give this team that long. And I think that's why it was so important to try to lose for Hughes. Try to get Jack Hughes, because you just heard it there in that cut, right? He said the top 2 guys have probably separated themselves from everybody else. The top 2 guys might be able to do some things. And here with the Red Wings, they probably wouldn't, because, again, it's that mentality. It's that philosophy. We like them overripe. We like our guys to go down, toil away in the minors for a little bit, and then we'll bring them up when we feel that they're good and ready, instead of just thrusting them into the lineup. I mean, let's be honest, guys, right? You just kind of look at what happened at the end of this year. Guys who were young kids got thrust into the lineup, played more time, and guess what happened? They got better.
Yeah.
They got better. It doesn't always work, but it does sometimes work. And if you get a guy who is supposedly a generational talent like Jack Hughes, just throw his ass out there, see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? You could suck more? I mean, like, honestly, you suck so bad right now, most people don't want to give you the time of day. Nobody really wants to watch your games because you blow so bad. So what's the worst that's going to happen? You throw Ville Lano out there?
Yeah.
Or Zadina? That's what I mean. You throw Zadina out there and what the hell is this? What's the worst that can happen?
Right.
He's going to be lacking on a defensive play, and another goal is going to get scored? Get the hell out of here. If the guy makes magic on the other end of the ice, eat it. Nobody gives a shit.
And here at the podcast, the best way to put it, if you listen and download, we are realistically pessimistic. And take that for what you will. But I think if you think about it and you're objective, being realistically pessimistic about the Pistons and Red Wings will keep you, in the zone of being actually factually correct. It's not right what's going on with the Wings and Pistons. They need to turn things around and real quick too, because you're losing your fans season by season with the direction that you're taking, and many people do not have faith that those that are picking, those that are leading the way are going to actually do the job. And that's just the way it is. Realistically pessimistic, I think, is a fair way to look at these two organizations. If you agree, disagree, let us know. Feel free. Leave us a voicemail, 248-579-8686. Message Adam at AdamRSTROZ. Message the network at Detroit Podcast. Maybe you have a different view. Maybe you feel like, maybe the Wings can get to 98 points next year. Tell me how. Sell me on the Pistons and Detroit Red Wings if you're listening to this and you disagree. Feel free. We love to read each and every message that comes into our inbox. Love it. All right, let me tell you guys about one of the great sponsors of the network, the Motor City Pawn Brokers. The Motor City Pawn Brokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality, brand-name new, and pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. For all information regarding the Motor City Pawn Brokers, go online and check out their website, MotorCityPawnBrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnBrokers.com, a great sponsor of the network. Well, we're at the offseason now in college basketball. Both Michigan and Michigan State have a lot to think about in reviewing their seasons. I want to start with Michigan. For those that are Spartan fans, we are going to break down the game, the disappointing end to the season, the loss versus Texas Tech, but we'll save that for the end. I want to talk about Michigan because news was made. I was kind of surprised, but in looking at it, I kind of feel like of the three that declared, I think two probably of the three will end up actually leaving for the NBA. Brisdakis, probably, and Matthews likely are going to test the market. Poole, I think, is taking advantage of the system wherein, if you don't know, now these athletes are allowed to actually hire agents, go through the combine, seek information as to where they're going to shake out, where they're going to be drafted. And for all three, it's interesting they made actually the decision to go because all three right now are projected to be second-round picks. It's interesting.
And probably latter
half, yeah, too. So I think Poole will benefit from learning about the system, but I think you can probably be safe that he's going to come back. Brisdakis and Matthews probably should, maybe test the waters out. Brisdakis is a little bit older. Matthews kind of probably, he didn't really develop as many people thought he would after transferring from, I think, Kentucky to Michigan. So I think, odds are realistically those two might end up not coming back. But we can start with the premise. How bad of a situation is it for Michigan when you lose three of your top scorers potentially to the NBA? I think it was kind of surprising when that headline came. I thought maybe Poole and Matthews, but I didn't think Brisdakis after 1 year. Granted, he's older. I think he could have definitely utilized one more year of development, get some wins under your belt, and experience another, training camp, off-season, and workouts. I think he would have benefited, no doubt. But, getting the information is invaluable. He may end up coming back as well, but I was kind of surprised at their decision. And if it actually ends up being true that they're all gone, Michigan's screwed, bro.
Michigan has an uphill climb if all three of them go.
Yeah.
Would you not agree, though, that Brisdakis is probably the best player out of the three?
Oh, no doubt.
I think out of the three
but he's still
guys,
raw.
Yes, very raw. I think out of the three guys, you could make a case for him to go towards the top end of that second round. Maybe if things shake out and he really impresses at the combine, he could maybe be a late first-round pick. But I was shocked that all three of these guys were going to test the waters here. Charles Matthews, I get, right? He did it last year. He had a really, really good tournament. And you were like, all right, cool. If he comes back, develops a little bit, he goes and works on the things that the NBA tells him that he has to work on, he could maybe be a second-round pick, possibly work his way into a late first-round pick. I don't think any of us seen high-end first-round talent with Charles Matthews. Jordan Poole, to me, seems like a player who's been living off of one shot.
Yeah.
He had one big shot against Houston last year in the NCAA tournament, and he has basically lived off that this entire season. There are times where he could take over a game, but it's only in spurts, and his shot selection is so horrible.
It's like way to test the waters when your stock is the lowest.
Right. He just ends up hurting his team. He's a guy who I believe, I'm right there in lockstep with you, I believe he will come back because there is so much more development that has to happen with him. Charles Matthews is a guy who will play defense, play lockdown defense. Jordan Poole, yeah, he can make almost every shot on the floor because he attempts almost every shot on the floor. Doesn't mean it's a good shot. Doesn't mean it's a good decision. There are things that he has to really refine with his game. Now, Brisdakis is a guy who, honestly, that game against Texas Tech, arguably the best defense in all the land, he was one of the only guys who showed up.
Yep.
He was one of the only guys who could make his own shot, who could get to the basket. I'm with you. He's very, very raw. Very raw. But he showed me that he can play defense. He showed me that he can make a jump shot. He showed me that if you need him to, he can slash to the basket. I got most excited watching, I think it was the first or second round NCAA tournament game where he was just cutting to the basket. He would get the ball, high post, and he would just cut to the rack. And this is something that you didn't really see a whole lot of in regular Big Ten play. And he showed that aspect to his game. He's a guy who I think with the right amount of coaching could really blossom into a good NBA player. I think he should come back one more year just because I think there are things that have to be refined. But again, I'm not mad at any one of these guys for testing the waters and trying it out. I believe that Brisdakis is gone. I believe Matthews is gone. I think Poole will probably come back. And all that being said, I find it unbelievable how Michigan fans reacted to this news. They lost their minds, and just were taking shot after shot.
You saw it too. I was going to bring that up.
All these guys.
Yes.
Makes no sense to me. Like, honestly, what are you so worked up about? If I was to tell you, hey, you can play basketball for me and I'm not going to pay you. Or John comes up here and says, hey, you can play basketball for me. I'm going to pay you $50 a day. Who you can go play basketball for?
Exactly.
You can go play for John all day long. You're not going to play for me. I'm not giving you nothing. I mean, I'm the better looking of us two, and I'm probably the more fun of us two, taking shots at you now. But you're not going to play for me. You're going to go play for the dollar bills. That's what these guys are doing.
But the average fan, and I think the fan that would reach out and make those comments will say, look, if
I
you
love
stay,
you, by the way.
Yeah, if you stay one more year, when you go play for John, you can then command $200. And say, I think that, why go play for 50 when if you stay just one more year, you can make 200 and actually help Michigan win and do something.
I get that, right? I understand that. But how many times have you seen injuries occur, right? Where you get hurt and you know what? You're not going to make it to the league now. See, you don't have the opportunity.
I don't think that the average fan wants or cares that a guy is going to be a second rounder. Now, if he's a first rounder, everybody's okay with it.
Oh, yeah, go.
They're okay, go ahead, go do it.
Yeah.
But to get drafted in the second round where it's not guaranteed and you're going to potentially maybe even have to go overseas. But remember, if you play overseas, you're making $100K a year to play basketball as opposed to zero.
Honestly, when you go overseas,
it's not bad.
You make a pretty good living and you live a pretty good life.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You go play over in Spain. I don't know if you guys know this or not. Chicks in Spain are pretty freaking hot. On top of it, they have a Spanish accent, which is pretty freaking hot. And you play basketball and you get paid to play basketball. That sounds like a pretty awesome life.
It's not
I
too
don't
bad.
know.
So that's where the fans are. Yeah, I can't believe that they would take shots like that, but I understand it. Definitely Michigan State fans did it when some of our athletes went way too early. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't pay to actually go. But you know what? There's
guys like who? Like Jaren Jackson or Miles Bridges. And look what happened with those guys.
Yeah.
They look like pretty good NBA players. Tom Izzo totally misused those guys. They look like really good NBA players. I don't think either one of us thought that they would translate in the NBA as well as they have. But you know what? They took advantage of the process. They declared. They made it. And you know what? With some good coaching and, again, time to play, something we talk about the Red Wings, they turned out to be pretty good NBA players. I think these guys, especially Brisdakis, think he has a real shot to become something in the NBA. Matthews, I think, could be a guy who's going to give you some minutes. He's going to be put into a spot where he's basically there to guard. He's there to guard and he's there to foul. You know, it's late in the game. You got to put a guy on a guy, and if they get the ball, your job is to go hack him. So send him to the line so we can get the ball right back. You know, Charles Matthews has been frustrating, I think, for most Michigan fans. Me, myself, because put a lot of stock in him. I thought he was a guy who could really help this team out, especially in the tournament. He was a guy who, if he was on his game and he was playing the way he showed he's capable of playing, this team would have been unstoppable. But again, too inconsistent. Missed too many shots, just didn't do things that were necessary to help put this team over the hump. And it was frustrating. It was frustrating to watch. And it happened regularly. Didn't happen one game, didn't happen 2 games. No. This happened often. And again, Jordan Poole, I don't know how many times we got to talk about his shot selection. That was the most frustrating thing about him. He doesn't play very good on defense. I don't think he's a very good defender, but I think he's got great ball handling skills, and he's got range. It's just you have to pick and choose when you take the shots that he takes. And I think this is something that's going to come back when the NBA returns the report on him. And I think that's going to be part of the reason why he stays, because he needs to really refine certain aspects of his game.
The big player that everybody looks to at Michigan State that was a bust was Marcus Taylor. Was a point guard in 2002, had a really big February. He was a sophomore, and he gets drafted by the Timberwolves, never makes the roster, and he just toiled away. And this is a guy that if he stayed for 2 more years, I think would have had potential to maybe stamp his legacy, similar to Cassius Winston and Mateen Cleaves and things like that. Marcus Taylor was a guy I remember specifically that when he announced that he was going to go pro was like, what the hell are you doing? So, and he flamed out, and it was a big, massive bust. So these athletes, look, they have the right to make the decision. I don't begrudge them for doing it, but you have team success when you stay and are a junior and senior. And especially it goes to show you that, hey, if you stick around at Michigan State, you're going to get better. 23 out of 24 classes at Michigan State have played in the Final Four. 99% of players that play at Michigan State have experienced at least one Final Four. And this class is already taken care of. The class of Foster, Lawyer, and Kithier, they're all set. They've been in now the system, and they've experienced the Final Four, and they're going to be better for it. And next year, Michigan State, I think it's safe to assume for you and me and to state that Michigan State's future is really bright. If Gabe Brown, Henry, Langford return, Aarons, I think that's a team that, what takes the edge off and the sting of that loss versus Texas Tech is the future for Michigan State looks really bright. And I think they have a strong chance and an opportunity at least to have a good season next year. Michigan, I think the fans are upset that, you cut out those three. You might have, a 19-win year.
The thing with Michigan, right, compared to Michigan State looks to be the number one team of the Big Ten coming back next year. Michigan this year, I think you could argue that they were the second best team in the Big Ten, not counting what happened regular season record wise with Purdue. I think Michigan was a better team than Purdue. I think you agree with that. I think everybody was beneath MSU. If you were to bring these guys back, I think another year, more development, I think they then become a better team. Maybe not as good as MSU, but I think they threaten much more. The fact that they got rolled 3 times by Michigan State really is the separating factor here, right? Now Michigan State is going to bring back probably Cassius Winston. Sounds like he's going to stay.
Langford and Aarons come back.
Right. Nick Ward's probably going to stay. He might go, but I think he's probably going to stay. Instantly, Tillman, arguably one of your most athletic guys and probably your one of your best shooting forwards on this team, he comes back. It looks like an unstoppable machine in East Lansing. So
you look at it, and there's a strong opportunity for a good year with some continuity and things like that. But, for Michigan State fans, the end of the season was really tough. Everybody was hyped. Everybody was excited. There were a lot of watch parties. There's actually a lot of closet Spartan fans that like to puff their chest out when we make it to the Final Four. And to see the reaction, to see how people were excited the 5 days, after the defeat of Duke, it was awesome. It was good to be a Spartan. And then you start to kind of pick apart Texas Tech, and you're like, man, that defense is strong. Michigan State's going to have to hit shots. And we knew it. We said it. And I thought that they would actually do it. I thought that McQuaid, Goins, I thought that everybody was going to step up and actually take the opportunity to hit those open shots. Okay, now, it didn't happen. Michigan State winning versus Texas Tech, and Texas Tech wore the shit out of Michigan State with their defense. And unfortunately, in the second half, Michigan State made the comeback, which was awesome, but they didn't hit that one key shot. Now, you can pinpoint and you can break down a lot of things, but I'll say this. The toughest part was you were right there. For a magical season to happen, magical shots have to go down. And look what happened with Virginia. They were down 3, and boom, they hit that corner shot, boom, they go to overtime. Okay, and Virginia then took advantage of Texas Tech in the final and eventually won the tournament. McQuaid had it. He had that moment that could have separated himself magically among all Spartans. Nationally, it would have been the shot. He had the shot wide open. It was his shot. It goes in and out. And it didn't happen. So, the luck factor didn't fall Michigan State's way. There were opportunities that they missed with the free throws, missing the front ends of 1-and-1. They kind of maybe underestimated Texas Tech and what they could do offensively. But by and large, they were even teams. I think Michigan State and Texas Tech, if they played 10 times, it would go 5-5. Either way, they're going to beat each other up. But in this contest, I think that Texas Tech was a little bit better prepared, and a little bit, they were more confident that, hey, if we do what we do on defense, we don't think Michigan State can score. We don't think that they can put the ball in the basket if we stop a couple guys. And that's what happened. And in the end, when you limit Cassius Winston, which is what we said would be a strong strategy, this is what, whenever we previewed the Michigan games, we said, hey, if you stop Cassius, you cut off the head and the game's over. That's what they did. And unfortunately, Goins missed a bunch of shots. I think he went over. Tillman didn't establish himself. There was no inside game. What I had messaged you going into that game was, in hindsight, obviously in the game, they established the game plan was, try to kick it inside and then try to find the open guy for 3 and hit the shot. In hindsight, I would have said, you know what, maybe somebody could have came to the table and said, if we try that, there's a greater than 50% chance it's not going to work and we're going to lose. Maybe we go up tempo, super fast, and try and confuse Texas Tech, run and gun, take everything up, maybe have Foster Lawyer in there and see if he can give us anything, a spark, and have him and Winston at the same time. And we'll take the mismatch on offense, but we'll take the mismatch with Foster Lawyer defending whoever and allow that. But if he can give us something, a spark, allow our offense to be different, I think that this game probably, if you talk to Tom Izzo, he'll say, yeah, probably we could have maybe approached a different game plan. But in the end, how do you do that? How do you try to execute that in 5 days? It's in hindsight, it's easy to say, but I think that what went wrong for MSU, it was the wrong game plan. You were not going to hit shots against Texas Tech. It was going to be a grind, especially when it's a team that basically shut down Michigan. You should have seen it that, hitting shots is going to be important, but why up the chance? Maybe we could try something different offensively to force our way inside to get the dunks. And I think that's what Tom Izzo's job is to figure out and to make it so that Michigan State make Texas Tech react to you. It just felt like all week and in watching the game that Texas Tech enforced their will on Michigan State the entire game. It never felt like Michigan State made Texas Tech adjust to anything.
Yeah, look, that defense,
it was sick.
I think I texted you. I was like, that defense is crazy. Like, this is like somewhere near the beginning of halftime. I was like, the defense is crazy, isn't it? And you were like, yeah, it's absolutely nuts. You're right. I think Tom Izzo fell into some old habits, and I think sticking with a guy with McQuaid for maybe a little bit too long was an issue. Not forcing more ball movement, and me and you were discussing it through text message, and you brought up a great point. They played this half-court offense against a team that suffocated you in the half court. Why not get out and try to run with them a little bit? Why not try to get up and down the floor? Try to beat them to their spots. Because once they got into their defensive front,
forget about it.
There was nothing you could do. You were taking bad shot after bad shot. So why not try to make them uncomfortable? Why play their game? Play your game and make them uncomfortable. Get them moving around. Get them away from the basket.
Is it bad to say
them out?
Is it bad to say that maybe they couldn't do it? That just Michigan State was a half-court offense, that they can't do it against that kind of defense? Because how do you simulate Texas Tech? You just try to say, well, we're going to try to hit open shots and try to grind it down. Maybe the strategy was, look, if we can get it to a one-point game, we'll hit the shot. We have that feeling now that you did it against Duke. You say, well, you know what? We also, in playing Texas Tech, got down big and came back. You were within one basket of taking the lead, so it wasn't all that bad. Tom Izzo could come back and say, you know what? If our guys hit those shots, we're good. If they hit the free throws, which they earned, then you have more of an opportunity to score, and then you make them feel a little bit of pressure. I just think that Michigan State was just one notch below Texas Tech, and I don't think that Michigan State really would want to change 100% their game plan, and it's hard to do, but I think in hindsight, maybe you could have mixed it in a little bit more. They just looked tired because we were saying, everybody that was watching was like, dude, there's 4 minutes left. You're walking the ball up the court. Hurry it up. Sense of urgency. They just wore the hell out by 4 minutes left in the game.
They wore the hell out. They looked tired.
Yeah.
It's like that defense just grinds you and grinds you.
Is it a bad loss for Michigan State to lose Texas Tech in the Final Four, to take Tom Izzo's Final Four record to 2-6? Is it a bad loss?
I think Tom Izzo's record is the bad look. Look, losing to Texas Tech, we all agree, one of the best defenses this season. It wasn't like it was a blowout. Do you know what I'm saying?
Close game.
It was. It wasn't like it was a horrible game. It wasn't like they got trucked. It wasn't like what Michigan's loss to Texas Tech was a bad loss.
That was brutal. Yeah,
that was a horrible loss. Michigan State's loss, while it wasn't good,
it was competitive, and you gave yourself a chance.
I think it was just. I think if you're a Michigan State fan, you should be pissed off because we discussed it on the podcast the week prior. This was your Final Four.
It was ours to take, man.
This was yours to claim, to take home. This was the one that was going to give Izzo all the validation he needed.
Because, you know what? In watching, I did peek into the national title game. I think Virginia would have handled Michigan State. I think I was
really surprised by Virginia.
They played really well, and I think that we're making an assumption, and I think sometimes in sports we do that had Michigan State beat Texas Tech, they would have been wore the hell out in a day to try and play them, and with only 1 day of rest, I think Virginia would have worked them because they had the better contest.
Caught up to Cassius.
Oh yeah, of course.
We
caught up in the Final Four. Yeah, of course.
We talked about it, and I was surprised that Cassius was able to give you as much as he gave you as the season went along. But
Virginia would have beat Michigan State. I think it would have happened. I think that they would have wore Michigan State down. They had obviously when you lose to a 16 seed and everybody's laughing at you, you have a strong motivating factor because when you're down 3 at Texas Tech and you hit that clutch shot, you go to overtime and blow out Texas Tech. Come on now. They're a team of destiny.
You know, one of the things about Virginia that allowed them to beat Texas Tech, they had 4 guys who could shoot the 3.
Exactly.
They had like a 40% clip. Like 40%.
Nice, right?
Yeah. So Texas Tech isn't going to allow anything in the middle, which is fine, but you can't leave guys around the arc just to shoot. And if you take away 1, fine. You take away 2, fine. You take away 3, you don't have any more guys to put on anybody else because that defense swarmed and it was like a double team everywhere. So you got one guy open all the time. There was they had no answer for it.
And props to our Steve Deist, host of the Michigan podcast, which airs every Tuesday on the network. He actually picked Virginia to win it all. And I think those that were able to see through what the critics were saying about Virginia, he picked him to win, so he won the listener challenge. And the person that picked Virginia also won Justin's bracket. Good for those that thought that Virginia was going to do it. I was a skeptic because Michigan State had defeated Virginia in the tournament. They lost to a 16 seed. They're kind of known for being chokers. That's how we talked about them here on the podcast. So props to Virginia. But to go back to Michigan State, it's interesting now in Tom Izzo's season-ending presser, they're already asking him, how long do you want to do this? How long do you want to coach? And Tom Izzo's come out and said, look, I'm going to be here a while. So he's not going anywhere. I don't think that he's going to make massive changes. I think he's going to roll into next year and really look to evolve and continue the growth of the players that he has. But he does have to make, from the outside, he has to make a couple changes in that offense. He's got to find ways to open it up a little bit and play different styles against different teams. Okay, because Duke's going to get better, Kentucky, Virginia, it's not going to be easy. And yes, I think you're right. Michigan State fans are devastated because you're not going to have a Final Four again with Virginia, Texas Tech, and Auburn. But in the end, you weren't the best team. You weren't even the best two teams. So, looking at it, it was a good season in totality as a couple of days have passed since the loss. It would have been great to see how Michigan State would have fared with Langford and Aarons on that roster. And if two additional scorers would have set the lineup differently, would those two guys have helped versus Texas Tech? I think it might have given State a better chance to compete versus Texas Tech. But all in all, when you ask, was it a successful season? Yes, it was. But Tom Izzo going forward, we have to ask. Each season that passes where he doesn't win it and doesn't take advantage and capitalize on an opportunity like the one he just had makes me think that when the day comes and he retires, it's just going to be with one. And that'll be okay. But at the same time, when I asked him at the presser, do you need that second win to validate it? He knows. He knows that he needs that second one. And, it's a goal for him. I just don't think he can meet it. It's too hard. You're not getting the best players. You can only coach up humans so much. You're going to have to go out there and get some blue chippers, some guys that are unbelievable. You have to get your Zion Williamson and try and keep him for 3 years. That's the formula. Get talented individuals, play strong defense, make the three, or develop people that can stay with you for 4 years, whereas, you might run into a bunch of young cats that are inexperienced. That's the formula. But can Michigan State do that? I just think that there are times when they run up against teams that are just more talented than them. And unfortunately, Texas Tech played a better game and a much better brand of defense than Michigan State's used to. And that's that. I'll say this. It was a good year, a great run, just epically disappointing to watch it. But I'll tell you this. Food helped. I ate ice cream.
It's like food helped.
Oh, dude, I was eating.
You sent me a picture. I think it was cake.
It was cake.
Was it
ice
cake?
cream cake and ice cream cake. That's what I contributed to the dish. It was a potluck. So I brought, like I said, I had steak and shrimp. We were eating good, man. I was like, damn, this feels good. But I told myself, too, and I wish State would have won. I said, okay, if State would have won it, if I would have earned another celebration, I said, I will then revert to a regular fan and not care so much. But, man, I was gripping. When they came back, I was screaming, yelling. It's just too much. But like I said, when you care that much, when you're invested, it's hard. But I think being around other people helped. Some alcohol helped. Food really helped. It's like, oh, man, this shit's good. But, man, it was nerve-wracking watching that contest. But, in the end, they make it. They had a great season, a lot of wins, a lot of great memories. And in the end, when you pimp slap Duke, it's a good year. It's a good year for Spartan. Good year.
I love it. Pimp slapping Duke. That's what makes it good or not.
Hey, you pimp slap Duke, you get to the Final Four. It's an accomplishment. It's not easy to get to the Final Four. It's an accomplishment, but it's also fair to say, it's fair to critique, to wish for more. And that's the way it is. Great podcast, man.
I understand,
Flew by.
man.
Great podcast.
This is a real good podcast.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, follow him on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Listen to the Big Drew and Jim program on 1130. Adam is an award-winning producer on that show. It airs 3 to 6 every day on 11:30 a.m. WDFN, The Fan. Message us on Twitter here at the network at Detroit Podcast if you agree, disagree with anything at all that we have said. Great podcast. Now, in the next 7 days, we turn our attention to the NFL Draft, baby. It's that time. Lots of talk about Bob Quinn and his maybe desire to trade out of that spot. We'll see. We'll dig deeper in the coming episodes, as well as peeking into the Tigers, the Pistons, and Wings. As always, you know this, man.
Go Tigers.
It's not over yet, so you can ask me that one next week.
Go Blue, bitch.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me.